What is going on, guys? It is your boy Jesse from Kings of Kong Gaming. I'm so happy that y'all are able to join us today, guys. I want to talk to y'all about why you're not hitting that damage that you need or clearing these domains in the time that you want. I've been listening to a lot of different YouTubers talking about how when you get to the higher world levels, it's taking people 5 minutes per domain is apparently the average. Whether or not that statistic is true, I don't know. But most of mine, as a free-to-play player, I'm able to finish most of my domains in about a minute. I think my shortest one being is like 30 seconds. So I'm going to try and tell y'all how to do all that as fast as I can with as much info stacked into this video as much as I can and keeping this as short as I possibly can. So please, guys, I would love for y'all to subscribe for more Genshin Impact videos that I plan on doing, and please type down below what you need help on, any questions that you have, and I'll be happy to answer them, or somebody within the community will be as well. That being said, let's get into it. So, starting off, yes, we're going to talk about artifacts. You probably watch a ton of people's videos, and you're like, well, I've already seen all the artifacts. I understand how artifacts work, and this is where I'm going to tell you, but do you? I don't think you do, because a lot of times I watch people and fix people's artifact stuff. They don't understand what they're doing. So most people get the main stat down, which is, for most DPS characters, HP flower is obviously HP. Your attack flower is obviously attack. Your sands is obviously attack percent. And this right here can change, right? This is the one that can be built a little bit differently depending on the character. Like, Ganyu isn't bad with Elemental Mastery. I've seen people build, like, defense on Albedo, which is stupid, but that's for a whole other video. And same thing with, like, watching people build HP for Zhongli, which isn't... That one actually isn't a bad idea, but there's still a lot of problems with that if you're just trying to see damage out. So attack percent is normally the one that you want to go with. Next up is your goblet. Your goblet should be whatever you're mainly attacking with. So in this case, with Zhao, I attack with mostly Anemo, right? If I'm using Zhongli, I'm attacking with mostly Geo. If I'm using Diluc, I'm using Pyro. If you're using Razor, you'll have mostly physical, and so on and so forth, right? And finally, this is the one that most people don't understand, crit damage and or crit rate on this. I don't want you joining me. I don't know who you are. Is mostly either crit damage or crit rate. So, why would you do that? Why would I put crit damage over something like an attack percent, right? This is because when you're closer to the end game, crit damage normally basically just puts out the most amount of damage over attack percent. That's not normally the case at the very beginning parts of the game, but you'll see a lot bigger numbers having that crit damage over the attack percent. And this is where I get into this. So, like, even then, like, most people have this down by now, but most of y'all don't have down your freaking substats. I go in and I'm like, well, your substats are garbage. That's why you're not hitting for anything. And as you can see here, if you look at all my stuff, almost everything is crit damage and crit rate, because those are your two most important things, right? These are the things you have to be focusing on. And, like, yes, there are characters that can also focus into something else, like Zhongli, who does scale off at HP, and having HP on that character is actually really freaking good, and you want to make sure that's a substat. But other than the weird odd ones in there, crit rate and crit damage is the one you want to go with, right? So, like, Zhao in this case, probably his third most important stat is, so it goes crit damage, crit rate, and his third is energy recharge, because people gripe and moan and groan that he has awful energy recharge. I beg to differ. I don't think it's that bad, but that's why I have it built just slightly on this, and that 11% is enough for me to be like, okay, I'm done. I don't have to worry about it anymore. So once you get those correct, that section, once you understand that, it's a little bit easier for you to now go into your details and look what your character is doing. So if you've seen my past videos, my Zhao right now is hitting for roughly 40,000 with Jadewing Spear and about 30,000 with Deathmatch. Now, this is fully stacked. This is not Refinement Level 5. Neither one of these are. These are Refinement 1. And I am a free-to-play. We'll say that again slightly. Obviously, I have Deathmatch, so I spent a little bit of money, but nothing, like, ridiculous, right? Like, I've spent probably $100 in this game, and this character alone is hitting for about 40k every hit and 30k with deathmatch, and he's not even finished being built, if that says anything. So this is where I get into your details, right? You have your two most important, like I said before, was crit rate and crit damage, right? But most of y'all, when I look into people's accounts, they're like, I'm still not hitting for much, and I have exactly what you told me. And I look in here, and your crit rate is like 30%, and your crit damage is like 100. And I'm like, well, dude, obviously why you're not hitting for anything is because your crit rate's garbage, and your crit damage garbage. A good rule of thumb that the Genshin Impact community has put out is having whatever your crit damage is, half that, and that should be your crit rate. So in this case, I should have roughly like what 80% crit rate. Now, personally, I think that's freaking ridiculous and super hard to get to. Yes, that is optimal, and yes, that's pretty much what you want, but that is ridiculously hard, right? So, my opinion, what I have found to be a pretty good range for your crit rate is always going to be 60%. No matter what character you're doing, 60% roughly is what you want to have. You're going to be critting for, again, 60% of the time, technically. However, I normally see it critting for like 80% of the time. It feels like it crits all the freaking time for me. But your crit damage actually kind of seems to vary character to character. I think my Zhongli has hit for about 60k is the largest damage number I've seen on him at 138%. Right? I've seen Diluc, his highest right now is about 37, 38k, give or take. I think I've hit a little bit higher once or twice, but that's consistent, right? Which is pretty good damage. And he's only at 154%. So for each character, if I had to give you a number for your crit damage, I recommend being around 150%, right? 140 should be your lowest point. Like, you definitely shouldn't be below 140. And anything 160 and above is obviously amazing, right? But still trying to keep that crit rate around 60 percentile. But yes, that's what you need to be looking for on your main DPSs. So, your second most important thing is that party setup of yours. Most people, when I come into their accounts, their party setup is trash. I come in and they're running 2 healers or 3 healers, and I'm like, well, Jesse, I'm just dying. Well, it sounds like to me you just got to get good at the game if you're dying and you have 3 healers. But besides that, especially towards the end game, you really don't need that many healers, okay? Your second character, so for example, Xiao and Venti, or Razor and Xingqiu, or Diluc and Xingqiu, or Diluc and Kaya, doesn't matter which one you choose, needs to be a character that synergizes with them well, okay? Now, Zhao's a little different, so we're going to come back to him here in a second, but we'll look at Razor, right? Razor is a character that is meant to do all physical damage. His physical damage is supposed to be through the roof, so we have to put a character, because he is such that hyper carry, he's just supposed to be doing all this damage, you have to have a character that is going to deal a ton of damage, which is going to be your sub-DPS role, that can deal a ton of damage and not be on the field, right? Xingqiu is that way. Xingqiu, pop his triangle, switch back to Razor. Now you're dealing consistent water damage, and on top of that, dealing a lot of physical damage. And if you proc Razor's ult, you'll have that, I can't remember what it's called, whatever the water and the Electro one is, I think it's Electro Charge. You have that proc being hit, plus I believe it does a little bit of physical damage as well. So you need that character that synergizes with them well. In this case, Diluc and Xingqiu procs Vaporize, one of the strongest elemental reactions of the game. Or if you want to do Cryo, it does like a 2 times damage. And for Xiao, again, Xiao's a little bit different. Xiao doesn't do like Swirl or anything special. He doesn't proc elemental reaction. So in this case, a character for him that is good is a battery. A battery is a character that gives you back your ult super fast, and that's what Xiao needs. He needs to be doing his ult consistently, always popping it, never stopping, right? So your second character needs to be, most of the time, your sub-DPS, unless you have a Xiao, or a character that synergizes with your character perfectly, okay? That word perfectly. Next, your third character slot. As you can see here on my Razor one, I have a second sub DPS character. Okay, on my Diluc team, you can run a utility character like Bennett, and then even on my Xiao team is another sub DPS character, which is, or just a support character as a whole, is Zhongli, who also does a ton of damage. So having that sub DPS is perfect. But this third slot is a slot for any characters that like what you feel like your team needs, right? So this third slot is for whether you need like, oh, I need protection, so I need Zhongli's shield, or I need more damage, so I'm gonna use Fischl, or I need more damage and healing, so I'm gonna use Bennett. Like whatever that case is, that's what your third slot is for, right? Now, this does not mean that if you're running a Bennett, your fourth character needs to be a healer. No, if you're running Bennett, please do not use two freaking healers, okay? That is wrong. Please do not. That's like a freaking taboo, and I will come into your game system and brick it, okay? Don't do that. That being said, your fourth character is your healer most of the time. So, in this case, my fourth character for my Zhao team is Diona, okay? Diona heals perfectly fine. She procs a good shield. I'm good to go. Done, right? Razor is his Chi-Chis. And Diluc, in this case, again, being a little different, his Bennett is that utility character that gives you the attack boost, that gives you the elemental resonance, and gives you a little bit of healing. So I don't need another one. I need something else like a sub DPS or a character that'll keep my Diluc on the field and living, or another one that procs these elemental reactions. Now that being said, the only thing I didn't discuss here was your elemental resonance. You need to make sure you have something on here. Otherwise, you're basically looking at stats and saying, no, I'm not going to take any of these, right? So if you see here, I'm running a cooldown. On this one, I have the high voltage one. But the best one is probably two fires. So if you can run something like, which increases your attack by 25%, you need to be doing that, right? I've run Zhao with, especially like just when I'm playing out in the real world, I use Bennett, and I'll use somebody like Zenyan, right? Where I'm still getting that extra attack percent, and this team is perfectly viable. And that's something that you really need to be paying attention to. So, that being said, let's go ahead and actually look at those levels as well. I haven't mentioned levels because I don't think levels are that important, right? A good rule of thumb is that your character's levels need to be 20 levels less than what your DPS is, okay? So in this case, my Zhao is level 90. You don't need to do that with your characters, okay? I did it because I love Zhao. Zhao is literally my favorite character in this game, and I went farming for him like 5 weeks in advance. That's why he's the way that he is. So, yes, he is a level 90, but all my other characters are about 20 levels less than him and are doing fine. So, in this case, a good leveled support is 60 or 70. That is a perfectly fine place in there, especially if you're in that upper tier of this game, right? So having a level 70 Venti, having a level, in this case, a 60 Jingshou, and so on and so forth will be perfectly fine. Now, your DPS needs to be your highest level character. A good level for your character is around level 80, okay? That being said, why, Jesse? Why is level 80 like the rule of thumb? First off, you're getting most of your attack stats to what they need to be. You're getting them up to that, in this case, 2703, or you're maxing out that HP, because level 80 to 90 doesn't do that much, but level 70 to 80 actually helps out a little bit. And also, on top of that, all three of your talents are fully leveled up. They're done. You don't have to mess with any of these. So, which is great. This is what you need. You need these three to be here. That's why I also said before that that's why you want these characters to be around level 60 or 70, because they can be they're able to stay and have these three talents that you need. Plus, you're able to level these up to the level that they need to be at, which is 6. And that brings me to my second point, or my fourth point now. People's talents. Your talents, most of the time in here, this is another one that is disregarded all the time. People's talents aren't freaking leveled up, and I don't know why. I come in, and I'm not hitting hard, and you're like, oh, you got all the substats, you got all the team comps, but your freaking talents are level 1. Of course you're not hitting hard. You're hitting like a freaking wet noodle. Obviously, right? A good rule of thumb is, again, each one of these needs to be level 6. Okay, now in this case, again, like I said before, Zhao is my favorite character, so 8 for me is exactly what I want. But if you go to like look at my Diluc, his are 8 and 7. Yes, his normal attack is level 4, but also I normally only hit with these two half the time, right? Because I'm constantly switching characters, and so this normal attack is barely being used. But I am working on getting that up, so let's disregard that. But yeah, so like having these up to at least 6 is the way that it should go. And finally, you probably I don't, it's not your most least important thing, but I made it the last on the list because so many people focus on the fact that they have a 3 or a 4-star weapon and are not paying attention to the fact that it's not normally your weapon that's the problem. It's normally everything else that I had just mentioned, right? So yeah, Jade Wing Spear is a great spear for Zhao, but Deathmatch is perfectly fine for him, right? So is Black Cliff Pole, etc. I've used Deathmatch, and again, like I said before earlier, I'm still doing 30,000 damage a freaking hit at world level 7 and killing my Cryo Regisvine in 7 seconds. I'm dealing enough damage to finish up domains in 30 seconds. That is what you should be doing. And it's a 4-star weapon. I've done the same thing with White Tassel, for goodness sakes. I tried it out not too long ago, making sure that it's still doing a good bit of damage, and I'm still able to beat these domains in like 1 to 2 minutes, even with a 3-star weapon. These are not your most important things. Yes, they help, but it's not going to make or break your full game experience, right? Now, that being said, though, you need to make sure you're putting on a weapon that makes sense, okay? For example, Deathmatch makes sense with Zhao, Primordial Jade Spear makes sense with Zhao, and the Black Cliff Pole makes sense for Zhao because of not just their substat, like in this case is crit rate, and Black Cliff is crit damage, but also because of their stat that they give you. So in this case is Gladiator, and this one's Eagle Spear of Justice. And I can't remember what Black Cliff Pole is right off the top of my head. But that being said, that is something that you need to be focusing on, right? So like Crescent Pike is an okay weapon on Zhao, but he's not going to be doing a lot of physical damage, so it doesn't make sense to have that as a second stat, right? So, again, same thing with the Dragon Spine Spear. These can work, especially if like Frost Burial is something that's actually not that bad on a character like Zhao. It's just better for you to have all of these 3 matching up and not just one, right? And same thing goes for like Venti in this case. Your base attack, see, like I make sure I have energy recharge on him. Gosh dang it, energy recharge on him because you want to be popping his ult consistently, nonstop, never stopping it. And so, man, that sounded like a song. Yeah, you want to make sure his energy recharge is high enough so where you can just keep popping his ult. And same thing goes with that one, doesn't count. And like again, Bennett for me has a problem with energy recharge, so I make sure I have something with energy recharge on him, and so on and so forth. And that's really it, guys. If y'all have any more questions, please type down below. I know this was a fairly long video. I try to get it out as fast as I possibly could. But if you enjoyed, guys, please subscribe, like for more. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have down below. Please just let me know what you got. Also, if you need any help, make sure that you can also text me on PlayStation or whatever, and I'll be happy to get back to you on that as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing, amazing day. Subscribe for more. Peace out.